All right, we are back here doing something a little different on the podcast. We have not really followed the college football playoff much over the past few years, but there's a lot of drama this year, a lot of chaos. You have a championship game coming up on Monday. I think no one would have predicted going into the playoff between Indiana and Miami. Join me today to reset where we've been in the playoff. Get us ready for the championship game. Bill Bender of the Sporting News, great friend of the podcast, covers the college football for them. Bill, welcome back. How are you?
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
Doing good. I've been having a lot of fun with the CFP. It's been a very entertaining couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's different. It has an NCAA tournament feel to it. The semifinals, I thought the quarterfinal round was great. Semifinals have been good. Well, one of them was a good game. The other was good for other reasons because you're seeing how dominant this Indiana football team really is. But, yeah, it's been a fun experience watching this and getting into year two of the 12-team playoff.
Yeah, for sure. If we're getting to the Indiana and Miami at all, like one thing I've noticed here, I'm curious about your take on this, is that for the second year in a row now, it seems like these teams that got the byes, the top four seeds, like they had such long layouts. It takes them a while to get going here. Indiana is still the only team with the bye of the 2 years to win even one game, and I know Indiana has been historically dominant this year. Like, do you think this is a problem with the format, that these top teams are sitting around too long waiting to play their next games?
Probably the major flaw in this thing right now. And it is major when you look at it and say, hey, I mean, 1-7 for starters, you have a 1-7 record in the, after having a bye. And like you said, I would even argue it took Indiana a quarter to get started in that Alabama game. So, and you talk to former players and coaches and even current players, look, they'll admit it less in the present tense, but yeah, when you're off of something for 25 days, it can be different when you first come out there. There will be rest. It's that rest versus rust. Most coaches want the rest, but the rust, it's too long of a break between your last game and the start of the college football playoff.
Especially for a team like I think even like last year, like if a team does not make their conference championship game, you might be going a month between games. That's way too long.
Yeah, I mean, when you're getting into 3+ weeks, I mean, what are we doing? So, I mean, I think that's the flaw. And, if they adjust that, not only that, you play the games at home. Ohio State, Miami, I'm not saying Ohio State wins. I'm saying Ohio State, Miami might be a little different if they're in Columbus. Texas Tech, Oregon, a little bit different if it's in Lubbock and those kind of things. Obviously, I don't think they could have played that Indiana-Alabama game on the moon. I think Indiana still would have won. But, you know what I mean? Like, we need to have these games on campus in the first two rounds. That would be my takeaway, especially if we go to 16 teams.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that here. Let's go into the Indiana run here. Obviously, they're the one team that's survived the long layoff. They blow out Alabama. They blow out Oregon, the pick six, and that Oregon really sets the tone here for the situation here. Like Indiana, it's weird watching, Hoosier football fans pop up out of nowhere and like they're stampeding all these buildings. We'll see how many they can get into the Orange Bowl on Monday night. But I do think I'm intrigued here because like Indiana, like being here alone is a story, but just being as dominant as they are is just shocking.
Yeah, and seeing how many people they'll actually put in the stands. I mean, I'm really curious to see what that number is. I think it's going to be a lot of fun figuring this out. They were 90-10. I would say it was like 90-10 Indiana fans at the Peach Bowl. Maybe 85-15, whatever. But for them to have this tremendous opportunity, it's amazing. And I think this is part of what makes the 12-team college football playoff experience special, and having them involved and having Kurt Signetti and Fernando Mendoza being able to tell those stories. I don't know, Mike. I don't know if you agree, but I just don't think any of us expected this to be what it is and this phenomenon. Not just that they've created the phenomenon, but we're talking about them as one of the greatest college football teams single season of all time.
Yeah, I've seen the comparison a lot to like 2019 LSU. It feels like very apt.
Well, yeah. And I think if they finish this off and finish 16-0, you'd start to have that discussion. As we wrote about it last Friday night. I don't know if you saw the article I wrote. It was comparing it a little bit. And obviously that LSU offense was cheat code between Jefferson and Chase and Burrow and Edwards-Helaire and just the way I remember watching their title game against Clemson, and they were absolutely unbelievable on that side of the ball. The Indiana defense, however, in running game, hard not to say they wouldn't make it a game. I don't think it's a runaway. Now, Georgia 21 and probably Alabama 20, a couple of those Clemson teams, they Michigan and Ohio State, they don't want a piece of that argument, but Indiana, they would and deserve to be in the discussion if they become the first 16-0 team of all time.
Yep, that's for sure here. And obviously, think about that semifinal game against Oregon. And, the first time these teams played, out in Eugene back in, October was a very nip-tuck, back-and-forth game. And it took Indiana till the end to pull out here. This one just felt like as soon as they got that pick six, it was it just became like a stampede that Oregon couldn't stop.
It really did. And you bring up a good point. Now, in this new format, too, it's kind of like the NFL. Some teams just get hit by the injury bug. And in Oregon's case, they were obviously not very deep at running back. Game, there's no question. It definitely became one of those things where I don't know if it was just from that first snap with D'Angelo Pons, the way that Fernando Mendoza's playing, but Indiana's playing with a ton of confidence. And I'll say this, the 4 games where they've been challenged, teams have held them, I looked this up earlier today, 3.8 or yards per carry or less. If they average 4 yards per carry or more, and it's typically more than that, you're in trouble when you play the Hoosiers.
You definitely something important for Miami to key on there. And obviously, we talked back in December when the field came out, and we said, boy, don't be surprised Miami is that team that just gets in and goes on a run. And I don't think we would have expected them to get all the way to the title game. I thought maybe a game or two.
No, I agree. I totally agree with you there, Mike. This team is very tested and a veteran team. I wrote a piece earlier this week as well about, Miami or Indiana were making all this about, okay, their starters average 4.3 years of college football. Well, Miami's average 3.9.
Yeah.
And they've got talent, they've got experience, and they've got good star ratings. The only true freshman that starts for either team is Malachi Toney. And what's been impressive about Miami in this playoff run is that, obviously they've been good late in games with Carson Beck, whether it was how they closed out Texas A&M in kind of a blood and guts defensive struggle. They get the interception at the end of the game. Ohio State, they need to run some clock and keep that Ohio State offense off the field, and they do that. And then Ole Miss, obviously, the back and forth. That was probably, I don't know about you, Mike, but that was probably the most fantastic finish of all that we've seen when Chambliss takes Ole Miss down the field and Carson Beck responds with a 75-yard drive, the touchdown run to close it. And that experience with Miami, I'm kind of backtracking because early in the week I was thinking Indiana's going to just blow them out. Now I'm kind of like, you know how you do, you second guess yourself. I'm doing that a little bit right now.
Yeah. I think the thing with Miami, too, is interesting about this team is that, obviously, they have the chip on their shoulders. Everybody thinks, we shouldn't be in here. We didn't get to the ACC title game. Did the committee, do a bad job? Flipping us in Notre Dame in the last minute, even though we beat Notre Dame head-to-head week 1. A lot of crazy stuff here. And, that spot against Ole Miss in the semifinal round, I think definitely was a very good test for them because, Ole Miss had that team of destiny feel with the whole, Lane Kiffin leaving them and them rallying and beating Georgia. And then, they held on there when it got very dicey at the end.
Yeah, I mean, it was. And I think, like I said, the clutch part for Miami is that the defense only had 1 sack in that game. And I think if they want to beat Indiana, the formula has to be, let's get after it on the defensive end. Let's shorten the game, which they got to basically repeat what they did against Ohio State. They have to run the ball successfully with Mark Fletcher on the interior between the tackles against a tough Indiana run defense. They have to not turn the ball over. Carson Beck has just one interception in the playoff on a tip pass. They got tipped at the line of scrimmage. Ole Miss intercepted it. They need to make light of the red zone and make those trips count and not turn the ball over, period. And if they do all those things, they're going to make it interesting. And they, I think their defense is experienced enough. I mean, one of the things too, both of these teams are built through the portal, not just Indiana. You look at Miami's starting lineup, you've got 14 starters that came through the portal, including the entire secondary. So it's not like Miami doesn't have a lot of portal guys, too.
Yeah, it definitely feels like that here. I think an underrated key to this game, we kind of talked about it earlier here, is like, this is a spot where, like, Indiana is just in basically playing home games wherever they go because their fans are just basically like traveling in droves and buying tickets left and right. But with Miami having basically the game in their backyard and like the get-in price is insane right now. I think it's just $3,000 to get in the building for the game here. I feel like if Miami can get it at least to 50-50, like in the crowd, I think like that will be a big help to them.
Yeah, I think they might. You know, you look at the ticket price market, it is. I've done this for a long time, Mike, and I don't remember seeing a year where the prices were like this. You know, I go back to like the Indianapolis year where Georgia and Alabama were there, and it was nothing like this. And even last year in Atlanta, they were wondering if they would sell this thing out. I think there are some concerns about how long the college football playoff season is. I think there's some merit to a lot of that talk, but obviously. This one isn't going to be like that. And you bring up a great point that if they can get this to 50-50, what an atmosphere that would be. I still think Miami fans are going to show out more than we think. I've been down there for some rowdy environments at Hard Rock, but Indiana certainly will show as well. I don't think it'll be the advantage that they have that we talked about at the Peach Bowl, but there'll be plenty of Indiana fans down there. And I don't know if this is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. You know, you look at rankings for next year, you start to take early look at that kind of stuff. And I mean, why wouldn't you put Indiana up really high?
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to be good again next year.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because, like, while we've been getting ready for this final year, you have the portal open here, a lot of teams making moves. Like, Indiana is, like, quickly getting their replacements in. They got their replacement for Mendoza lined up. They have a couple of key offensive weapons coming in here. Like, these teams that are sort of using the portal and the NIL, like, it's going to be like I think, change the landscape of the college football for the better, where it's not just every year, okay, pencil in Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia for the semifinal. I think having more volatility in the mix here, I think is good.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And I mean, you know, I still want the regular season to matter. I do. And it does, but it matters in a different way. What I don't want to happen is for college football to become, I love college basketball, but I don't love it. And I do acknowledge that a lot of people watch it for 1 month.
Yep.
And I don't think that will happen with college football because the environments and those kind of things are just too good. But there's no question that the value of some of those regular season matchups has changed a little bit. I mean, we had you can't argue that because Oklahoma, Alabama. I mean, one team won the regular season, one team won the playoff. Georgia, Ole Miss. That was another one. I feel like the Oregon, Indiana regular season game was a lot better than the other one. So is that the environment we live in?
Yeah, certainly a fair question because obviously they do have a lot going on with the CFP. And like we've seen some teams have been quicker on the NIL draw than like some of their other ones. And that's like you got Texas Tech spending like $25 million on their player payroll. Ole Miss when Lane Kiffin was there, basically going nuts in the portal, Signetti in the portal. Like it feels like it's kind of a matter of like once the big boys catch up and realize, okay, this is what we need to do. I wonder if the balance starts swinging back the other way.
It might, and it depends on how. Here's another thing I was thinking about is obviously Mark Cuban is on one of the faces of this Indiana run, and he's got a lot of money. We all know that. I don't watch Shark Tank. I don't know about you, but I know he has money. And, are these the guys that are the de facto owners in some way for these college teams like Cody Campbell at Texas Tech and the amount of money he's going to put into that program? And when will they start making some decisions that really determine the course of these programs? I think that's something to keep an eye on. But to your point, I think you're absolutely spot on that, at a certain point in time, Ohio State's, I know from living here, they're not taking losing Indiana in the Big Ten championship game and lightly, with NIL and everything that happens there.
Yeah, for sure. In terms of the off season here, we've had a couple of big transfers already make their decisions. We've seen obviously like a couple of big quarterbacks go in here in terms of the situation. I do think we have a lot of like key player move. Like who are the players that you feel like are getting like these situations? Who are going to make the biggest impacts next season in new spots?
Well, I mean, Levitt, obviously. Is he final at LSU? I think he is. I mean, it's all but there. I mean, that's one. Dylan Raiola at Oregon. If Dante Moore, and as we were recording this, Moore had an NFL draft decision to make. I think even if he goes or stays, Raiola lands in a spot where he'll be able to develop his 5-star talent and get ready for the NFL. I think those are a couple that stand out. Obviously, with Lane, he's done a nice job. I like Deuce Knight to Ole Miss, and it's unfortunate that Trinidad probably won't get that waiver. I mean, obviously, it's really tough. You've got to make some decisions at that point. And, Deuce Knight, the 5-star freshman this year, limited sample against Mercer, could have a really good season with Ole Miss and keep them going if he has the inside draw to be that starting quarterback next season. And obviously, I failed to mention Brendan Sorsby, who we just talked about. Cody Campbell. Texas Tech's problem in that playoff game was they managed very little, if any, offense. And obviously, that hurt them. So maybe Brendan Sorsby can ignite that a little bit.
I'm glad you brought up Dante Moore. Literally, as you were talking here, like he went on SportsCenter and he announced he's coming back to school for the 2026 season. So he is not going out; he's staying in. Like, what's your reaction to that?
Now you get two quarterbacks there. So now right off the bat, Oregon has the best quarterback room in the nation. So that helps. And I think there were some things in that bowl game, obviously disappointing, that if he comes out next year and fine tunes that. A second year as a starter, I'm never not a fan of. I always make the Burrow comparison. It obviously won't be that perfect, but anytime you can get another year in the system, get more reps, and get ready for the league, it'll definitely benefit Dante Moore.
Yeah, we've seen historically that these guys who come out too early after not enough starts, like usually don't pan out at the NFL level. It makes you wonder about like a Ty Simpson, for example, at Alabama, like when he comes out after I think like only 13 starts. So like I can't fault Dante Moore. And Oregon with the NIL will definitely make sure he gets paid this year.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the development piece for him. And obviously Oregon has done a nice job with Dylan Gabriel, who I know, whatever your opinion of him, Dylan started in the league this year. And I think will have a nice NFL career. Bo Nix has the Broncos in the AFC #1 seed going into a big matchup with Buffalo. So Lanning's done a good job. That's always the best way to do it. The best PSA is to keep putting guys in the league. And I think Oregon will continue to do that.
Yep. Two more things before we wrap up here. Number one, last time we talked, Michigan had just fired Sharon Moore for cause for all the chaos happened there. They seem, I think, to land on their feet pretty decently with Kyle Whittingham landing there as sort of like a placeholder, sort of like clean out the program a little bit, like stay there for a couple of years, then give way to the next big coach. Like, how do you feel about what they did with that?
I mean, given the circumstance, it's a home run. I mean, I've been using the phrase like ground rule double because, obviously pretty embarrassing situation to get yourself in that situation. But, Whittingham's solid. He gives them a foundational piece. Who knows how long he'll coach, Some of these guys coach into their 70s now and are fit, and he's about as fit a coach as you're going to see with how much he lifts. So, I think he brings an aura of seriousness to Michigan. And there will be bumps, obviously, but there'll also be some development for Bryce Underwood, which was lacking this year. The running back room is going to be deep. Kyle Whittingham teams, you're going to get a physical team, and Michigan's at their best when they're that. Those were the teams that pushed Ohio State around a little bit for a few years under Harbaugh. So I like it. I think the carrot for him is fairly obvious. At Utah, you had to scratch and claw and do everything in your power just to get the College Football Playoff Committee's attention. You won't have to do that as much with Michigan. If you win 10 games there, you're in the playoff.
Yeah, but the last one here is obviously the playoff format here. And I know we're coming close to the decision point where you have to make the call for ESPN to what you're doing next year. I know that there's been rumblings that the Big Ten and SEC are kind of horse trading, where Big Ten's like, okay, we'll give you 16 this year coming up in 26 if you're willing to go to 24 within 2 more years. And it seems like that seems to be the debate right now. If you had to make a call right now, do you think that we are at 12 next year, or do you think we increase next year?
I think we'll be at 16, but I have nothing to back that up. I mean, spoke with ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips on on the record this week, and he would like them to go to 16, but there's, they have to have the discussions and come to an agreement there. He thinks 16 is best. Jim's they're kind of the middle of this debate because the ACC had a very good bowl season, they have a chance for a third school since 2013 to win a national championship. And I think they're kind of in between the SEC and the Big Ten in terms of what they want for the sport. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. The 12-team format, we've only done it for 2 years. So, we'll know by next Friday and hopefully it's a good one. Yeah. I can see both sides. I would like for us probably to go to 16, but then I don't want to see another expansion from there. I think 16 is more than enough at that point.
I think you should do 16 and just align the calendar a little better where maybe January 10th is the end of the college football playoff here, and you have the semifinals on New Year's Day. As opposed to I think getting into Martin Luther King Day for college football seems far too long.
I would agree with that. They absolutely need to fix the calendar. That's the number one concern in the sport, whether it's the portal or pushing the regular season up, or as I tell you every year around this time, I'll cover the game Monday night and I'll be down there and there'll be a lot more people excited about the NFL playoffs because we're in conference championship weekend and it's hard to compete with the NFL this time of year. So I really do hope we push this up to its rightful spot moving forward.
Absolutely, Bill. Thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it. If you want to follow you on social media, keep up with your coverage, how can I do that?
Yeah, I'm at Bill Bender 92 at sportingnews.com. And it's always a pleasure, Mike. I know this is one of our traditions we've had over the last couple of years, and thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Enjoy the game on Monday, Bill.